Hi, I'm Christine Mahoney. Today I'm talking with Martin Vanderskou, the President and CEO of Looking Glass Development, and also a nationally recognized leadership and business performance expert. Martin, thanks for talking to me today.
Thank you, Christine. Glad to be here.
Well, you've written a book called Flavor of the Month, and it talks about some lessons that really any business leader can use. Let's apply that to the BP oil spill situation. What are some of the lessons that folks could take away?
It's a fantastic case study, I think, in poor leadership, really. And it's not necessarily just one person that you can hold accountable for the problems that they've had. When you look at executives and the way communication happens, I think the key lessons that we can take away from the BP oil spill is how we choose to communicate with the outside world and the risk and trust factors that we have to deal with. When I've traveled throughout the world talking to senior leaders, I've consistently found that three topics come up for them over and over and over again. They're really hot buttons, and oftentimes I'll talk about them in terms of what keeps them awake at night. Three areas. Number one, they all tend to be very concerned about risk management, and BP is a perfect example of poor risk management. When we talk about risk management, we really are dealing with two issues. One, risk recognition. Do you know what the potential risks are? And then number two, our contingency planning, or how do we plan on responding to the different risks when they occur? When we look at those two areas, BP, like all the other major oil companies, had a risk management strategy should a spill like this happen. In fact, all the oil companies were largely using the same plan. There were some assumptions in that plan that really hadn't been tested very well and evaluated, and people all thought we'd put the three-ring binder up on a shelf once we created the plan, and we don't revisit it. Senior leaders need to make sure that they are consistently revisiting their major risk strategies to ensure that they're up to date and current with whatever's going on, regardless of the industry. Another industry where the same thing would hold true would be the banking industry, where they've seen some of the same types of problems. The second thing that we need to look at is performance metrics. So how do we know where we're going, and are we following our procedures? In the BP case, like most major oil companies, subcontractors were actually providing a lot of the work that was being done on the Deep Horizons well. Because of that, BP didn't necessarily have total control over what was happening. Processes and procedures weren't necessarily followed. And so because of that, and because of a lack of oversight and good, simple process management fundamentals, again, they ran into issues. There is a constant push in every industry, and I would contend it's not necessarily a bad thing, to get things done quickly and as profitably as possible. It's why businesses exist. The joke I often tell people is there are three basic human emotions: greed, fear, and greed, according to Hawkeye Pierce from the old sitcom MASH. And when you look at that, in our economy, there's nothing wrong with that. The way people will act is in what we call their own perceived best interest. That might not be what really is in their best interest, but it's what they think is in their best interest at that point in time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that leads people to cut some corners. We need to make sure that we always have processes and procedures in place as senior leaders that are very easy to follow, low overhead, and lead us to the right outcomes. If we set those processes in place, and that requires us to have fantastic quantitative objective metrics, because the key lesson there is metrics actually drive our performance, just don't indicate it. We will get the right behavior. The last thing is talent management. Do we have the right people in place with the right skill sets, and have we empowered them to make the right decisions at the right times? Unfortunately, a lot of organizations, the way they respond is they try to tightly control authority and power. Unfortunately, that creates massive bottlenecks. It tends to slow down decision-making to an extreme, and so it causes people to try to skirt around processes. They'll find outs where they don't need to follow it, or ways to skip steps, if you will. The more complicated you make your process, the less likely people are to follow it. And the less time you spend empowering your people, again, the more problems that you're going to have. So as leaders, we need to take away three key lessons, really. focusing in on talent management, risk management, and performance management. And then finally, making sure that we communicate in an open, trusting manner where we're not simply trying to protect the organization, if you will, from the problems that occur. It is perfectly okay for a leader to say they don't have all the answers, but I'm going to go find out. Don't fake it. Probably the biggest lesson we can walk away from both the banking crisis that's happened recently and the BP oil spill is whenever we fake it, we're going to be found out and we're going to pay a very heavy price.
And some of these fundamentals are talked about more thoroughly in Flavor of the Month, your book. So we appreciate your time today, Martin.
Absolutely. Thank you, Christine.
Thanks.